think about yesterday.
Welcome, Roy Coughlan, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Michael, and thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. Today, we're going to have you on as a podcast coach. We're going to be talking about your work, how you help people, and we're going to maybe learning some tips of the trade because so many people today are starting podcasts. Many people are becoming authors, they're writing books, they're doing things for the first time, and they might not know everything, maybe be the most effective. And I think it's important that we have someone there to guide people who are trying to do these things that are going to give them more purpose, fulfillment, meaning, but they need a little bit of directive in the beginning. So we're going to be learning all about that in this episode today. But before we do that, tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help them.
Thank you very much. My name is Roy Coughlan. I'm originally from Cork in Ireland, which is the south of Ireland. So it's the biggest area in Ireland, but the second biggest in population. And like 15 years ago, I moved to Łódź in Poland, which is in the center of Poland, third city. And basically what I'm doing, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but what I'm doing for the last few years, I've been podcasting for 5 years. So I'm helping people start a podcast, and I'm also helping people get on podcasts as well, because I've realized there's a load of agencies that were contacting me and they were so unprofessional, and it just annoyed me. I was like, they're not serving the clients. And I said, I need to do this, and I know I'm doing it better.
Well, let's talk about a couple aspects to podcasting. You have a bunch of podcasts. You're not just a one type of podcast guy. How many podcasts do you have, and why did you start them?
I have 5 podcasts, and I suppose it's a bit of a long story how it all happened, but if you'd like to hear the whole thing, I was doing a lot of real estate, and I was like the president of all the companies in Poland, with syndicates. And when the crash happened, I was still doing very well, but all the investors who were 10 times more wealthy than me lost everything. And I thought, they'll get it right, it'll come good. So I just increased my money into it, and I said, it'll come right, and it didn't. So eventually all the deck of cards fell down. And in Poland, you're personally liable as the president. Nobody, like the accountant didn't tell me, the solicitors didn't tell me. So instead of me kind of making like 5 million euro, I was personally liable for 5 million euro, and lost my houses, lost my personal belongings. And just through that, then I kind of started doing meditation and cleared the decks, but it took a few years. And then I went to it was a Mind Valley event, A-Fest, and the event was What's Your Quest? And at that, I said, I want to expose all of this, because through my journey of courts, bailiffs, I saw this was really corrupt. This is orchestrated. It is so bad. And a lot of people throw in the towel or get depressed. And it's like, there's no need for it. This is and when I was there as well, there was brilliant speakers, and I hated public speaking. And I said, I need to, 1, get over my fear of public speaking, and 2, make this my quest. So I was going to write the book, which I did, but I didn't release it. I came back, I joined the Toastmasters, then I joined another Toastmasters, I formed a Toastmasters club, then I was a coach for one. I entered all competitions, done an open mic TEDx, in comedy, won competitions, got into the final of 5 countries, overcame the fear, went to another event, and it was how to start a podcast. It was like a workshop. And I never even thought that. Used to listen to podcasts, but never kind of thought it. And I said, oh, this is a great way for me to get my message out. So the first one was the speaking podcast. Because I was in all the competitions, I knew loads of public speakers around the world. That was the first one. Getting coaches and speakers on the show, sharing their tips, tricks, how to do it, and also their journey of the fear they had. And most of them, it comes from school, which is strange. Most people get the fear from the teachers putting them down in front of their classmates. So the next one that I did then was the meditation, because I kind of overcame what I went through from meditation. But I remember there was one of them, it was like the 6 phase meditation, and then it disappeared. There was another one, then they started charging for it. And I said, when people are done, they don't need to be this to happen. I had met a load of meditators, and I said, listen, I'm going to create a meditation podcast. Will you give me meditations? As it turned out, I'm interviewing a lot of them, and then they give me 1, 2, maybe 5 different meditations, and we talk about sound meditation, breathwork, chakras, yoga, even all that kind of stuff, and that's doing well as well. The next one was to learn Polish. So as I mentioned, I moved to Poland. I'm not the best at languages. So in Ireland, we go to school from age 4. We learn Irish from 4 to 17. if you ask me, say something in Irish, and most people are like that, because it was kind of like, I could tell you a prayer in Irish, which is sad. Like, I mean, that's how it was taught to us. Like, you just had to, a memory system. So when I went to Poland, I was trying everything. I was trying Rosetta Stone. I was trying Pimsner. I started doing lessons in the evening, but because I was running so many companies, I was exhausted. I started falling asleep. So the woman started getting me to juggle tennis balls to get the brain active. Then I got more lessons a few years later. And I said, maybe I'll start learning from a podcast. And the only ones that existed were scripted or only in Polish. I said, that's not the way to do it. Basically, with my ex-wife, she was the teacher. That's how I met her. She's the teacher. I'm like the student. And it's got over 2 million views and downloads between the video and the audio. It's doing very well. And they're just like 5 to 10 minutes. But I've done it in a way that I want to learn. It's like a picture. It's like going to the restaurant, things that you can ask for, go to a mechanic, 5 to 10 minutes with pictures. I say it in Polish as well, but I also say the English. Plus we have the bit of humor in it. It's not like serious, because I think a lot of times when people are learning a language, they're learning it for 1 hour, 2 hours a week in one spot. And I don't think your brain can do that. Like, maybe some people can do it, but I think best way is like 5-10 minutes a day. And it's resonating with people because it's doing well. So the next one was back to the kind of original plan, The Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions. And that's doing well. I mean, I've had Mickey Willis on the show. I've had Dr. Peter McCullough, a lot of famous people. And we do live shows as well. It's in the top 0.5% as well. Like 4 of them have got into the top 0.5%. One jumped back. I think the speaking came back to 1%. But and finally then was the crypto. I saw there's a load of fraud and corruption with that as well. But I didn't want to put it into The Awakening because I said, not everyone's into blockchain technology, and I didn't want to lose my existing audience. I created the crypto, and I'm just talking about kind of good ways to invest, all the different things to be careful about, capital gains, taxes, how to file, all NFTs, and that's currently at 1.5%.
You said a lot, but I do want to start to break that down because you said a lot of great things in there too. And I want to focus on the first thing, when you started to see things were wrong. And many people, when they write books, they create a podcast, they start a YouTube channel, whatever it be, it's because they see something they want to instill into the world, something they want to correct in the world. And I even started this podcast, I think during COVID or after COVID, because you had to pivot when everything shut down and there was no more clients coming in person anymore. It's like, well, what do? I wasn't really keen on going in front of a camera and just talking to the camera, and eventually people will come in and listen. I did some live stuff. It was weird in the beginning. I didn't mind public speaking. It was just weird to be behind a phone just talking to it, or being in an office and just talking to a camera. But you get used to it, and then you get really good at it. Similar to doing Toastmasters, I did it for a little bit, and you're just like, it just becomes another day. Similar to walking, talking, whatever it be, you become more confident in it. And I want to go down 2 paths today. Confidence to do the things that we want to bring to the world, that we see that needs correction, as you did. And then the aspect of starting something, because what you created is going to stand the test of time, right? You want to help people, you want to educate people, you want to do it in a way that is effective to their learning and their growth. How they do it is that they have to realize that if they want something in life, they have to go out and get it. Sometimes when they start a podcast, they think people are just going to come running. There has to be systems in place for people to say, you know what, I want to listen to this podcast. How can they find this podcast? With that being said, what do you think is going to be the most appropriate place to start for someone who's trying to start a podcast?
I suppose, like you mentioned, kind of knowing that you want to get the message out. So that would be like your niche. It's kind of, what can I bring to the world? That would be the first thing. At the start, you were kind of talking about maybe authors and stuff like that, because a lot of them, they're doing the rounds on a show and different podcasts. And it's a lot of work actually getting on a lot. So by them actually creating their own podcast and talking about their book, because they can break it down into a lot, and they might start writing another one or getting in different people, and as well as kind of promoting their own services. A lot of times that's the first thing that people are kind of doing about, oh, how much can I make from doing this? For me, it was never about the money. It was always kind of like, this is about the message. Later on, it was kind of like, ooh, this is costing me money instead of making me money. I mean, it was never, other things were feeding it, but I didn't expect it to be so many different costs, between Zoom, Calendly, stuff, all these little things, even the website, if you're using depending on the platform, like just by doing that, to be cautious of what your initial plan is. When I'm talking to people, if they're saying, I'm doing this because I want to make money, I kind of say, this is a slow game. This is something will definitely make you money, but you're talking about the numbers. I mean, some people, it's like a shop door and they're kind of waiting. They're thinking, yes, they're all going to come running. And there's crickets being heard in the background. You kind of have to go get your message out. And the problem is a lot of people, like one, they get actually, like, because I know so many different podcasts, a lot of them get depressed when they say, oh, I've only 10 people viewing an episode or 30. And what I say to them is, I mean, you said you were in Toastmasters. So like what I say, if you went into a room and there was 20 people there, most speakers are delighted 20 people are in a room paying attention to them. And if you come back next week and 2 are gone, but there's 2 new people there, you wouldn't care. You'd say, yeah, next speech, let's go. But unfortunately, people are looking at Joe Rogan, 10 million and whatever million and all these other things, and they're looking at like Mr. Beast on YouTube, and they just assume that's the norm. They're forgetting the population, and they forget the amount of people that are trying to get their message out. And like one of the things that I've always said to myself, and I say to the people that I'm kind of working with, or just if I'm talking to other podcasters, if you were having a conversation and it changed one person's life, would you have that conversation? And I believe it lands on the person's lap when they need it. There's so many times you'll get a message from somebody just thanking you or whatever that. And that feeling is not about the number. And I'll tell you about the way the numbers worked for me. I remember when I was doing the speaking podcast, I think I was about 3 weeks in. I didn't even get to the top, to 100 or something like that. And I was asking everyone in the Toastmaster meeting, did you download it? Did you subscribe? It was like 100 was a major achievement to get to, 100 downloads. Then it became 1,000. And I remember when I hit 1 million, between the few of them, it was like, you would think it'd be the other way around. And now it's like, I'm probably at 100,000 combined with everything monthly. And I'm going to keep going and trying to get, but it's not about that. I'm watching it. I track everything. I have an Excel sheet where I'm putting it on all different things, Rumble, BitChute, YouTube. And I'm looking at my averages and I go, that's down. Why is that down? Oh, I forgot to share it on this group. I forgot to do this, and just maybe that episode wasn't great. By looking at these things, and the same with when the person is actually releasing their show and they're doing it, to be looking at your analytics. So for example, I had one recently that went out and I was like, I didn't want to really put it out because the guy didn't turn up. He came and he was like, he just no energy, and he was flaky, really flaky, to be honest with you. And I was like, and I put it out and I actually didn't like it. And I was thinking, I don't think the people like that. And I looked in and you could see after 5-10 minutes, it dropped down to 8%. And then I look at ones that I knew were brilliant. And you have like, it'll always drop a little bit, but it was like consistent. And like when you're watching things like that, you know what your kind of listeners are looking for as well. It's not just it's brilliant that you get to talk to different people and you're learning things and everything. There's no point in pushing out something thinking just to get them out, because some people are doing that. They're just blasting them out. They're not really watching. Like, for example, I went deep into kind of UCC, sovereignty, common law and stuff like that. And I realized, like, for me, I'm doing it because I realize how corrupt the whole system is. And by getting a guest on and going, whoa, I like this. It was something I never knew about. And just realize the power of signature and different things that you can do. But the audience, because in Australia and America, everywhere, and you see the numbers are massive on that. I get them guests back 3 times and I'm getting them back for me as well. But I let the listeners know, hey, he's coming back. If you've got some questions, I'd like to try to cover some of the questions as well for my listeners. They know that, thinking of them. And another thing is, a lot of times when people are kind of talking, like I've listened to you some of your shows and you're very good at doing that. You're conscious of your listeners, but not every podcaster is. So sometimes I might talk to you about something, you might know what it is, but you might ask a question because the listeners wouldn't be at your level, let's say, or just on that particular topic. And you always have to think about your listeners.
It's an interesting conversation that we're having because I can resonate on so many different levels. When we start something, a business, a podcast, you have to give yourself a mindset that it's like, I don't care if it takes me 5 years. I don't care if it takes me 10 years. I'm not looking at a profit. I'm looking at making a difference. Now, the difference doesn't have to be in someone else's life immediately. It could be in your life. Typically, like if you, let's say you start going to the gym and you want to record it on Instagram. And so you're just taking pictures on Instagram and you're recording your progress. People are going to say, well, let me look at your journey. I can't tell you how many people go to YouTube to look at personal training stories where someone is like super out of shape, maybe, and then they get into shape and they look at the story. But it's so funny because they'll watch one YouTuber, they'll watch another one, and they keep watching it, and they amass a huge amount of wealth of information. And then from there, they become more confident. They become more resilient because they understand it's going to take time because they're hearing it again and again. It's going to take that. It's not going to be easy. Some days I wake up and it's just like, I don't even want to go to the gym. I don't want to eat healthy. I want to just do the bad things. But yet they have these people that they confide in, the people that might not even know they're watching. And the audience, as you said, is so big. You do have to make sure you don't betray your audience. And this is why you have so many podcasts, because you have to understand your message is going to reflect different to different people. So that's why even when I do my shows, I have 2 shows currently, and then it'll be 3 in 2025, where everything is becoming more specific. However, coaching in session has a very unique role. And I do sometimes play coy when it comes to the guest, because it's like I put myself in the audience shoes. What question would I ask if I didn't know? Because sometimes even my guests, it's very rare that they will ask me, because I think they read the podcast description. It's like, I want to know your mindset. I want to know what you think. The world already knows what I think, because you can go to any podcast, you can type it in on my website, go to a blog, you can find out what I think. But it's not about what I think. It's about how you're thinking. Is this way a good way to be thinking? Think of it as, if you are a pessimistic person and you just think negative all the time, you are a glass half empty type of person. Is that going to be beneficial for the long term? You said something about looking at podcast downloads or looking at views. That's the quickest way to lose your determination and focus, because it's about making a difference. It might be one person. It might be a group of people. As you said, you go into the room, there's 20 people. You're so elated. You're like, this is great, 20 people to listen to. But yet people, as you said, they want the accolades. They want the notoriety. They want the fame. They want the millions of views. We can work toward that. But there's something special when we can say we helped a person today. Give yourself a little bit of gratitude or a little bit of leeway in your day, in your personal life, not even looking at technology anymore. How many people have you helped today in your own personal life, people that you can touch? How many people have you called and said, hey, I appreciate you. I just want to let you know that. How many times have you did that? Most people go out looking for gratification and satisfaction, but they're doing it in the wrong way. And when you start a business, start a podcast, you are going on a journey, we have to bring that mindset to it too. It's not so much of, all right, yeah, I got 100,000 views, we're doing good. It can feel good for the moment, but happiness is not so much of the destination. It's about the journey. Did you enjoy the podcast? Did you enjoy creating it? Did you enjoy the guest? Sometimes people don't even look at that. And quality control is big here in coaching in session. Just because I have you on for a recording, it doesn't mean you're going to make it onto the podcast. Sadly, I have a folder full of people who don't have episodes, but I might do something with it, maybe create a clip of a good part, but the total message is not in line with what I'm looking for, because everyone has a message. It's just that sometimes they haven't perfected it yet. And so when I bring people in front of my audience, guests like yourself, the message is your story. But however, sometimes people haven't done the healing. Sometimes people haven't focused. Sometimes people are so one-track minded that they can't focus on every little thing. And this is where I want to go with this. That one-track mind, they look at the views only. They look at the money only. They look at the quality control only. What is the perfect encompass to developing something that you can be proud of and the world can also aspire to maybe attain because it's so good?
I think one is people have to kind of leave the ego at the door, which is very hard for people, because most people, I don't think they've learned to accept, even with, say, all the craziness going on in the world at the moment. Some people, even though they know what their thought process was before, there's so much information about it, irrespective of whatever it is, but they will never put up their hand. And it's kind of the same in the podcasting world. Like they have to make it more about the mission. Just everything is about the mission. And like money will come, the numbers will come. And once you care, it's like people will know it and they will actually resonate with it. And they'll go, I like his style. I like the way he talks, even if I don't agree with everything. I mean, you can't expect everybody to be totally on board with what you're doing. But when you're kind of even giving your message, that's one thing I do as well. Because I mean, especially with the awakening one, I mean, it's like controversial. People kind of, they're either on one side or the other, but I never attack any side. I'm just giving why I believe this is why. And I tell them how I do the research and why it's about asking the question and everything. And like going back to the show, like if I'm talking to people that are saying, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, what I'll say is commit to a year, because the amount of people that I know, they've done 3 shows, they've done 10 shows, and they just throw in the towel. Like you do a lot. It's great. You're going to be on your third one. I was looking at like you've 360 D1 or something like that in 2 years. Like that's impressive. There's very few doing it at that level. So you're probably doing 3 or 4 a week that you're kind of releasing. And the amount of times that I have seen people, they throw in the towel, they're doing 1 a week or 1 every 2 weeks. And they say, I don't have the time. And I know it's all about committing to what you've said you're going to do. So for example, you're not going to say, yeah, I'll just chill today. I'll watch Netflix or I'll do this, I'll do that. You're going, I have a show to get out to my listeners. I need to edit it. I need to organize the interviews, but do it for a year and then say, are you enjoying the process? Like the amount of things I have learned, even people that I've had on the show, they'd be like, hey, if you're ever in the States, come over here. You can stay in my house and everything, and just keeping the connection going. And then you see the people supporting you as well. Like, because you see people that are doing it, whether they're podcasters or not, some are, but like they'd be giving you a thumbs up and just little comments on when you put out a post. And it's just kind of building that relationship. And I think that's kind of an important thing as well. Most people forget when you're building your community. I mean, I ask everybody, especially on the speaking, I've kind of changed the speaking one. It was the speaking podcast, and I was speaking with Roy Coughlan. That's the way I've changed it. But I ask everyone about the social media, like what's your kind of go-to? Because sometimes there's a new platform that you wouldn't know about, and I'd say, oh, they might tell me about it. So I tend to be kind of an early adapter for loads of these things. Hence, I get my name, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's always my name. And nobody likes it. Like everybody thinks, oh, it's great. It's like, it's a time suck. We all know it, but we think I have to be on TikTok because there's an audience there. I have to be on Instagram because there's an audience there. I have to be on LinkedIn. I have to be and it is a real time suck. And do you get so much enjoyment in life? Like, I'll ask you, like, do you get as much pleasure doing all them things as opposed to interviewing people?
I get no pleasure from social media. 0.
Exactly. And if everyone is honest, it's like, it's a kind of 95%. I mean, obviously there's a few that do. But you can outsource it. But the thing is, what I say is just get systemized, but don't outsource, because what happens is a lot of people, they get somebody to do all that. But when someone is writing to you or making a comment, they're not at your level. They wouldn't even be listening to the podcast. So let alone understanding when someone is engaging or even criticizing, but it might be criticizing in a good way. They might even there's plenty of times that I got advice and I was like, I didn't even realize it. Somebody say about a show, like for example, the Polish one, somebody wrote to me and they said, your earlier episodes have disappeared. And I was like, well, and I went and checked and they were right. And it was Podbean, and it was a setting that you limit the number of shows. They had it automatically set. So then I just changed it to 999. But but I think if that was written to somebody else, it would have went over their head and they would have thought nothing of it and just delete. And most people, so what I would say is if you're going to do it, you don't have to do everything. I mean, I don't really like the Instagram. Some people are brilliant, but kind of stick to 1 or 2 and try to get very good. Like I think for me, Facebook kind of serves me well. So I do the shorts on that. And like, this is kind of for you and for all the others as well that are thinking of podcast or maybe have a podcast, is find groups related to what you're doing. So for example, my Polish podcast, I've got foreigners in Warsaw, but also Polish in New York, Polish in Chicago, Polish in the UK, all the Polish groups. It takes like 15 minutes, but no, I can get somebody that can share to that, but I check the messages. Every time I put out an episode, They can share it, that's okay, but I'm watching the messages that come in. And by engaging with the groups that are resonate with what you're doing. So if you're doing fitness, the people that are interested in fitness are in fitness groups. You're not going, like most people, they just blast it out, or they're putting it on their own thing. And like the latest one is people are doing at highlight or at everyone. That's okay, kind of, I think once a month. Some people are doing that every day, and you're allowed to do it once a day. I think it annoys me because it's like, it's different if it's relevant. If you're in a specific group, that's really, you need the information on the thing. But most of the time it's like, it's just kind of like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I think you're annoying people. So it's only when it's really specific, do that and just engage. Like another tip that I only found this out a couple of months ago, but when people give a thumbs up and a heart, when it's a page, so it's like your podcast page, you can go in and hit the thumbs up. You see the people that done it, and you can invite them to your page. And I just got into the habit of that. So now all my Facebook pages are increasing. And, it's just like I try to, with my numbers, and I try to get 1% is my target a week. And compounded, I don't know, I'm trying to figure that one out, but I'm sure it's nearly doubling, that when you compound it and over the year. Just by looking at that and then kind of going, that one hasn't grown, and then try to Reddit and stuff. Like, I don't really understand Reddit, so I've ordered a book now to try to understand it better. It works with the Polish one. I'm in 3 Polish groups. It engages. Then all of a sudden they're saying I'm spamming them. On, say, the crypto one, they just remove it. I don't get it, but it's a case of like studying and doing the marketing as well. Like, I've read books on Facebook, I've read books on Google, I've just to understand marketing, and same with the titles, because it makes a difference in the name, especially if you get someone famous. I mean, mention their book in it, the way search engine optimization, that you have the name. So I have the name obviously on the title, but then about my guest, and I have the name, and then what we discuss and how to contact and the name. And if we say the book, I write the name of the book. And I think all these little things, it all adds up, because everybody's looking for the secret sauce. How can I get my show to be the top? And the first thing I say is, make sure it's a brilliant show, because you can be a fantastic marketer. Yeah, you can do okay, but the listen score will be low, and eventually it'll run its course. You might get people in, but will they stay in? Whereas if you're concentrating on quality, that's okay, because it's out there, and eventually you could get a shout out. I mean, like one time there, I had a guest on, and she had a very big blog, and she said, is it okay if I share your meditation podcast on my blog? Sure. And I got a massive jump, but you just don't know. Don't give up. Just keep chugging along and enjoying the process.
Perfect. And that is so true when it comes to social media, learning about your audience, maybe defining your niche, and then going into it. Our conversation has been one for many people to look at, to listen to again, and start to hear those tips and tricks that we have said, that, looking at your story, your journey also, where it's just like, he grew something, he made something. And many people, they want to grow something, they want to make something, but they don't know everything to do, or they don't see their blind spots. So they're looking at the views, they're looking at, all right, I'm just going to post it everywhere and people are going to click it. Sometimes engagement has to be there. Sometimes a little bit of sincerity has to be there. We have to understand that there's so much content, and we have to make sure our content is relevant and to the people that we're trying to reach. And the work that you do as a podcast coach is helping people realize that, because anyone can make a podcast. Many people are not going to be consistent, but anyone can make a podcast. And you help people not only bring their show to life, but learn how to manage their show, in the sense of, if you want to do this, do it for a year. Be consistent. Okay. What's going to work best for you? And that is going to be big for many new podcasters, people who are trying to get into this space. And I loved our conversation because it is one of truth. It is one of journey. And for anyone who's looking to elevate their podcast game, elevate their goals for this year, reach out to Roy, because you're going to be learning so much from his journey, learning more about what they need to do to start the podcast and to keep it going, but then to not just look at the superficial things that society says you need. As we begin to wrap up, Roy, can you please tell the audience where they can find you, and then maybe give us a final word?
So I don't know, will they see the video, but basically it's bio.link/podcaster. And if it's not, like on my own shows, I always have the QR code So basically, it's something that I encourage people to do as well, because before with QR codes, you needed a special app and everything. Now it's just get your camera and it gives you the button and it brings you to all the links. So for me, it brings them to all the things I'm doing, all my 5 podcasts, as well as the coaching and everything. And like, that's what I would kind of wrap up by saying is make it easy for people to get you. Like, I do the live show and I've told like one of the girls that does it on me, I said, look, you're putting down all these different links, create a bio link, like Linktree. I prefer a bio link. I just think it looks more professional. That way people go in, and if they're interested, they'll actually look at your YouTube, they'll look at your, different, the audio and stuff like that, and make it easy for them. Where sometimes people just, they list all the different things. And I think it's like you hear the person that's selling the candles, they sell 3 candles, they make a load of sales, and they go, oh, I'm going to have 12 candles, and they make less sales because people are kind of, and I think it's probably the same if you have in the show notes, you've got 50 links, and kind of make it easy for people to find you.
Okay, and I'm going to make it very, very easy for people to find you. The link is going to be in the description box below where they can find you. The bio tree or the
Yeah, bio.link/podcaster.
The bio link, yes, I'm going to put that there. That's going to be your one link, and it's going to be connected to everything, your Facebook group and your website, and people can choose, right? Because I think that is going to resonate with more people because, as you said, everyone gravitates toward a certain platform. Some people like Instagram, some people hate Instagram. Some people swear by TikTok. Some people do not want to watch or be a part of TikTok. It is important that you're on the different platforms, but the ones you resonate with is going to be your focus. And I think Roy is spot on with finding your audience, bringing quality, and then sharing what you think the world is missing because it's going to give you so much more purpose and fulfillment. I want to thank you so much, Roy, for coming on, spending some time with me today and talking about your work.